Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to the PNW District Project Recognition webinar. My name is Alyssa Holsey, and I currently serve as this year's District Project Committee Chair. And I'm so glad to see all of you here today, and I'm so excited to end off this year of fundraising on a high note. All right. So we're going to begin today with a year in review in order to celebrate the achievements of all of our PNW members. So I'll now hand it off to LTGF Division 13, 15, 17, Angela Cho, LTGF Division 48, Audrey Anderson, and LTGF Division 52, Lauren Reed, to present this segment.
Okay, hello everyone. I'd like to start off our year in review by acknowledging all of the divisions who have contributed to Thirst Project fundraising this year, as well as some of the top fundraising clubs. Every division you see on the screen has donated to Thirst Project this year, including several divisions without official LTGs. So if you see your division on the list, make sure to show some spirit in the chat. Next up, I'd like to announce the top 10 fundraising clubs in the district. Whether their donations were raised this term or last term, each of these clubs deserve a round of applause for their outstanding efforts towards fundraising for Thirst Project. Starting with number 10, we have Bonnie Lake High School from Division 30, Monroe High School from Division 21, Steilacoom High School from Division 35, Ephrata High School from Division 58, Gig Harbor High School from Division 34, Camas High School from Division 40, Federal Way High School from Division 33, Governor John R. Rogers High School from Division 30, Puyallup Senior High School from Division 30, and lastly, Coeur d'Alene High School from Division 48. Congratulations to each club. These lists prove just how passionate PNW members are about helping end the global water crisis, and I want to commend you all for facing the challenges of this past year and continuing to serve. Thank you for all that you do.
Next up, I'd like to go over some of the successes and challenges faced by many of our clubs this year. These responses have been collected through our club outreach campaign conducted a few months ago, and we want to highlight the experiences many of our club members shared with us. In terms of fundraising successes, some of the most recurrent responses have been on the topic of involving people outside of their home Key Club in fundraising opportunities. For example, other clubs, local organizations, businesses, restaurants, or sponsoring Kiwanis clubs. Giving incentives was also a common response, with many clubs setting up rewards or officer punishments for hitting milestones, organizing competitions between members or grade level prizes, or simply selling candy, crafts, and other items in exchange for donations. Many clubs also found creative ways to adapt previous successful fundraisers into a virtual setting, such as hosting virtual walks for water or club talent shows via Zoom. However, due to COVID-19 and the widespread shutdowns of schools, adapting to virtual methods of fundraising was a great challenge. For example, many clubs expressed having struggles with lower membership than usual, school district policies that prevented fundraising or club donating money, or not having resources to run a functional club virtually environment. Additionally, finding opportunities to serve and fundraise safely have been especially challenging this year, and is something all of our clubs have faced. We know that this is a difficult time for everyone, and we hope to convey the message that every contribution is a big contribution. We see you, we hear you, and we want to support you. If you ever have questions or are in need of resources, please email our committee at project@pnwkeyclub.org.
Lastly, many of you may be wondering, how much does PNW actually raise this year? We'd like to end off our year in review by announcing that as of today, our district has raised $21,193.79 for the Thirst Project this term, which is the equivalent to just about 1.75 freshwater wells. But what exactly does this mean? To begin, 100% of the money we have raised and donated will go directly towards building freshwater wells in water-scarce communities within the Kingdom of Eswatini, Africa. Since just $25 can provide one person with clean water access for life, the donations we have raised will allow for approximately 847 people to have clean water for their entire life. Additionally, this clean water access will cause disease rates in affected communities to drop by 80% overnight, and will allow for women and children who would previously need to spend hours walking to fetch water to get a job and an education. Before we end off the segment, we would also like to announce that over the past 3 years, the Thirst Project has been our selected district project. We have successfully raised over $100,000, which is the equivalent to 8 whole wells sponsored. Once again, a massive thank you to each of you for your fundraising efforts this year and for helping the Thirst Project end the global water crisis. We will now be moving into our student leader panel, which will be moderated by the LTG of Division 9, Haley Smith, and LTG of Division 64, Rosalind Dye.
Hello, everyone. So before we start with the questions, I'd just like to introduce the 3 panelists we have here today. So first, we have Vincent Lee, who is the current president of Liberty High School Key Club in Division 28. We also have Alyssa Napier, who is currently the editor for Auburn High School Key Club in Division 33. And lastly, we have Jasper Bragg, who is the president of Gig Harbor High School Key Club in Division 34. So let's just give a big welcome to each of them, and thank you all for being here.
So we'll now begin with our questions for today, which each panelist will have time to answer before we move on to the next question. With that, our first question is, what were the biggest challenges you and your club faced this year regarding fundraising, and how did you overcome them?
So one of our biggest challenges was that we had a lot of fundraisers planned for in person, but we obviously weren't allowed to do that. And so it was hard coming up with ideas for what to do virtually. But how we overcame that was that we used a lot of resources that PNW Key Club offered, like especially through their Instagram and also their fundraising guides. And also we just researched club fundraisers from other Key Clubs in the past. And so we compiled those ideas all together to create fundraising projects that would work specifically for our club.
Yeah, similar to Vincent, our main struggle at Auburn High is we're not a very big club, and we didn't have a lot of members before the year started, and none of them knew like what
Jasper, you can go ahead and answer now.
Sorry about that. I biggest challenges was also our Gig Harbor School club was pretty small, and I think our biggest challenge was getting permission to do our fundraiser and to include our COVID guidelines like social distance, mask up. Not surprisingly, it'd be much easier if we didn't have it, but that was probably our biggest hurdle.
So the second question is, how has your club adapted to virtual fundraising?
Okay, so I'm pretty sure all of you know this, but it's a lot harder to engage and get members to participate under a virtual setting. And so what we had to do to adapt to that is that we talked about the Thirst Project a lot at our meetings. And so we even had Justin England, who's a Thirst Project ambassador, come in at one of our meetings, and he just spoke about the Thirst Project and why it's important. And we also have a Canvas page and an Instagram where we discuss the Thirst Project in great detail. And so when Thirsty 30 came around, we just advertised it a lot so that members could participate in it, because under a virtual setting, everyone's on social media. And so that's why we utilize that a lot.
Yeah, we also had Justin come speak at our club. It was really, really fun. Our main thing is we've had a lot of online donations and social media. I'm the editor. Okay, sorry, my connection is unstable. But I'm the editor for our club, and it's mainly for me anyway, social media and sharing.
We, I think my club adapted surprisingly well. We have quite a few handful of people attend our club, and our editor does really cool slides. To advertise the first project, we included a lot of facts from the Pacific Northwest Thirst Project website. Um, and we also showed the video from Instagram of the founder talking about the water crisis, etc. But we have done surprisingly well online.
The next question is, what has your club or club's most successful fundraiser this year, and what made it a success?
So for our club, we didn't really have like a huge event or anything, but for one of our meetings, it was directly focused on fundraising for the Thirst Project. And so the premise was that we did a sort of a challenge thing. So members could have 10 minutes to donate $50. And so at the time, we didn't know what our incentive was going to be. And so that we just threw that challenge out there. And so during that meeting, they donated $175, which is amazing. But the fact that we didn't know what our punishment and slash incentive was, I think showed that it was more about them really caring about the project because we talked about it so much. And so I think that's what made it so successful. But anyways, we asked them what punishments they would like to see us do, and for some odd reason, they wanted our vice president to film a TikTok dance. I think it's because he had a lot of friends in that club, and so they wanted him to be embarrassed or something. But that's what we ended up doing, and so yeah, I think that's what our most successful fundraiser was for this year.
Our most successful fundraiser was called Walking for Wells. Yay.
My successful fundraiser by far was for the Thirst Project. We did a fundraiser where people would drop off water bottles full of change and extra bills that they had. We did not expect for it to get past like $400, but here we are at 875, 845. But I think the most successful made it successful is we got the word out. We made posters. We posted around town. We even went to a Kiwanis meeting and advertised um, some of the facts, some of the effects on dirty water, um, and that if we didn't show up at the Kiwanis Club meeting, then that would probably we probably wouldn't have made as much as we did.
All right, thank you. And the last question is, if you could give some advice to clubs looking to fundraise virtually in the future, what would you say?
I would say a few things. The first one I already touched on a little, which is to educate your club on the cause. We just had so many meetings dedicated to the Thirst Project, and just educating them on that really, I think, helped build a connection and just showed how much they could help this cause since they were so informed on it. And also to advertise a lot because, especially virtually, you have to use social media a lot. And so I think us using our Instagram and stuff made it really successful. And thirdly, I would say since every club is different, every club is like unique and has its own culture, I would say to do what your club would like to do or are willing to do, because although like you can get like a bunch of fundraising tips from places, but you know your club the best, and so doing what your club specifically want to do is just very important to fundraising success.
Yeah, basically, I kind of like have bullet points listed out, but my first one is keep it fun, because no one wants to donate to like a fundraiser that's not fun. Like it's in the name, you know. Also, market it well, especially since we're like virtual right now. If you don't market it, no one's gonna know what's happening. But also try not to shove it down people's throats because they will get annoyed at you, and you don't want people annoyed at you. And then also make sure that your information is clear and laid out nicely so people know exactly where to donate. People know exactly who they're donating to and like everything that they need to know so there's not much questions that need to be asked. And then also try and reach out to people that aren't in your like club or school, because I know fundraisers in the past before COVID and stuff, it was just like candy sales at school and it would only be like the students that were donating. But we've gotten a whole bunch of people that don't even live like in our city to donate to our fundraiser, and it's really helped a lot. So
Um, if I had to give some advice, I would probably say the number one thing is advertising. Seems to be a trend here, and get the word out. I found it very helpful to start early and find as many people as possible that know people. We advertised at their school. We advertised in neighborhoods. It just the more people, the better, and also be informed. Uh, it also seems to be a trend here. I found it also helpful to state some of the facts, as I mentioned before, and that gets people to think, oh, this is an actual problem. Uh, we should probably donate.
All right, thank you all for your responses. So we'll now move into a Q&A for audience questions. Our panelists will answer your questions that you type in the chat. So please, if you have any questions you'd like to ask all of our panelists or one specific panelist, again, please just type those in the chat and I will acknowledge them. All right, so our first question is for everyone. What was your personal favorite fundraiser that you did this year?
I can answer first. I think the only one I talked about was our favorite just because it was, oh, sorry. Um, just because like it was very simple and our members had a lot of we had a lot of participation in it. And even though we didn't know what the incentive was going to be at the time, they still cared a lot about the project. And so the one where we had our members have a challenge during the meeting, I would say that was my favorite.
my club in particular did just the one big one, but we've also like dabbled in a lot of like the major district ones and stuff. Like I just finished the hydrate for 28 and that was a challenge, but um it was the most fun, the walking for wells one, because it was a lot of fun getting to talk to the officers and the advisor members and everyone and see what they thought about what it should be and what it should be called and what the incentive should be and all that fun stuff. So yeah.
My favorite was the donate water bottles. It was my favorite just because we raised so much more than we anticipated. And it was just such a shock to see everyone's face light up in the club that we raised as much as we did. Just priceless. You can't recreate that.
All right, awesome. So our next question is from Katie. Are there any fundraising tips you guys have for specifically smaller clubs?
I'll go first. So my club is pretty small. We probably only have 15ish members, and sometimes it's hard to get the word out. Like, um, not everyone comes to the meetings because they've got stuff to do, but again, the Kiwanis Club has been invaluable this year. They've sent us emails about district projects, projects in general, just around town, and that's probably the only reason we've gotten so much uh, things to do. Just reach out to your local other clubs, and if you have a Kiwanis Club, that's great.
Yeah, I know my club, we only have like 15 members also. A big thing for me, because I'm an editor too, is social media is key. Um, like, even though we only have like 15 members at each meeting, we have like over 100 followers on Instagram. So just being able to share the message like that, share the message through them, and also partnering with local businesses and stuff. Just do anything that you can to help get the word out about the fundraiser and who it's helping. So even if people can't donate, they still know it exists and they can still share it with other people.
All right, so our next question is from Andrea. So, how do you get members to actively participate during your club meetings?
I can go first again. We do some, I don't want to call them icebreakers because everybody rolls their eyes when they hear it. But we do these little activities. We'll do Kahoots. We'll do like little polls. Um, I feel like not everyone does these. We don't do them all the time, but when we feel the vibe, it's kind of gonna low. We'll say, "Hey, you guys want to do Kahoot? Do Disney princesses? We can do, heck, we can do like freaking pre-calculus. You never know, but it just gets members to think and to interact. And that's probably the easiest solution for me.
Yeah, similar thing. We don't call them icebreakers, just because again, people roll their eyes. People don't like icebreakers. Uh, I one thing I do is I play music and I just keep asking people questions. So if it's like if I don't know if they're like paying attention, I'll just be like, everyone say hi to me in the chat, just so they like know. So I know that they're there and they know that I like am still like talking to them and I'm like not doing something else, which I kind of do a lot, but it's okay. Um, but yeah, just kind of just try and build a personal connection with some of your members. It's definitely hard since we're online, but I know we did I want to say Padlet is what
So similar to Jasper and Alyssa, we also try to do a lot of fun icebreakers. And every meeting we try to do something different. So whether it be like an icebreaker or a guest speaker or like a service project of a sort, we usually just try to do something different so that members can stay engaged and they never think it's like repetitive or boring.
All right, thank you. We only have a couple more minutes, so I'm not going to be able to get to all of these questions. But I think our next question will be from Hannah. So what promotion methods do you guys recommend for clubs who aren't as active on social media?
I'll take this one real quick. Um, Email is a big one. Honestly, I email so many members a day. It's insane. You don't have to be active on social media. If you have a Google Classroom too, just keep everyone updated through there. Email them. If you have phone numbers for some members, be able to text and call them if you want. Just basically just spread the word out and just be like, hey, can you share this with other people too? So just kind of spread all over the place what you want to do, and you can do that through any way. It doesn't have to be through social.
I just was reminded of this. We used to use Remind. Some teachers use it for assignments and such, but we use it for, hey, we got a meeting today, or hey, we got a poster making event this Saturday. Come if you can, bring your markers and whatnot. But I think Remind is something that not a lot of people know about, but it's really helpful because you can just send a link in chat and people can click on it and get updated.
We also do something like some of the same things. We email a lot. We also use our Canvas page, which is what we use for school. We advertise it a lot on there because we have a Key Club like class for it. We also like to do this thing where the officers just contact members individually if there's like an event or something, or if we need to ask them to start a fundraising page or something like that. Just if you have like their phone numbers or something, you can just like text them or just things of that nature. And so you can do that if you don't have a social media presence.
All right, awesome. And this will be our last question. So after all of these fundraising experiences, what is something you wish you knew before you started fundraising?
I'll go. So you can go.
Something I wish I knew is how much work it is, honestly. Also, just it's mainly just communication. Get to know who you're going to be working with the fundraiser. Like, I haven't really talked to the bookkeeper at our school before fundraiser, but now I've emailed her so many times. I'm pretty sure she's annoyed with me. But just honestly, just communication is key. So
I couldn't have said it better myself. We actually teamed up with a nearby school, Key Club, and we did a joint fundraiser for. They did diapers and we did Thirst Project, but communication is key, and couldn't have said it better myself.
Vincent, do you have anything to add?
I pretty much say the same things. Communication is definitely important. But I don't think I would have anything else to add. It's just, our club hasn't really like fundraised in recent years, so it was kind of a first for us. And so, yeah, I would just agree with Alyssa and Jasper.
All right, well, thank you everyone for your questions. And then can we please give a big round of applause to our panelists? Yay. Okay, so next up we'll have a presentation from our special guest speaker from Thirst Project, Jaya Dayal. Jaya is a Thirst Project ambassador from Washington, D.C. Here to talk a little bit about how Thirst Project has adapted this year. So please put a warm welcome in the chat.
Hey everyone, it is so awesome to be here and I really enjoyed hearing about all like the amazing work that you've been doing this year. I mean, I'm amazed just hearing about like how much money and how much you've done for Thirst Project. And I've definitely heard great things from the organizational side too. So like Alyssa said, my name's Jaya and I represent the Washington, D.C. region for Thirst Project, but because things are virtual, we are speaking all over the place this year. And I know that all of you are pretty familiar with Thirst Project and have even had the opportunity to have like great speakers like Justin already come to you. And I'm definitely going to pass on all of the nice things he said about him to him. But just like for those of you who might not know as much about Thirst Project, we are an organization that focuses on empowering young people just like yourself to help end the global water crisis, because you all are the perfect example of why we exist as an organization, because you're proof of how much can be done. So the water crisis, it's this huge issue that affects a lot of people. Right now, over 600 million people on our planet do not have access to safe, clean drinking water. And people in water scarce regions around the world have access to less than 5 gallons of fresh water per person per day, which is about this much, which of course in a Zoom background is hard to see, but that's a jerry can, which is what people use to collect water. And this has definitely become a much bigger issue during the COVID-19 pandemic, because we use water for everything, for our daily needs like cooking, cleaning, but even things related to hygiene, showering, flushing the toilet, washing your hands. It all requires clean water, which is why clean water really does serve as the first line of defense for a lot of communities when it comes to dealing with a pandemic or stopping the spread of any infections and illnesses, even in a more normal year. So we see the problem of the water crisis in 3 parts, really, at Thirst Project. There's first the part of drinking contaminated water, because all around the world, you have people in rural and developing communities who drink from open, unprotected water sources, whether it's a pond, a river, a lake, or stream. It's these sources of waters that are visibly contaminated and shared with animals who often drink from and defecate in the water. From drinking this water, there are parasites, bacteria, diseases that people can contract on a regular basis that, combined with other disorders, can make them really, really sick and can be really deadly. One place that we work a lot in is the Kingdom of Eswatini, which I know you all are familiar with, because that's where your hard work has been going towards, providing so many wells in Eswatini. $100,000 makes a huge impact. But there are a couple of reasons why we do a lot of our work in Eswatini. And first, it's because it has the single highest density HIV/AIDS population in the world. So even though that's not what Thirst Project necessarily focuses on, we don't help with AIDS treatment or AIDS clinics, water still plays a really important role in treating AIDS, because the parasites and bacteria in dirty water will make people sicker because their immune systems are already so compromised with HIV/AIDS, which is why clean water really does make a huge impact on effectively treating and managing it. So in addition to that, Eswatini has a pretty small population. It has a population of about 1.3 million people total, which is why it is a reasonable goal for Thirst Project to give the entire nation clean water for life in the next decade, which is what we have committed to doing. The second big issue with the water crisis that we talk a lot about at Thirst Project is the task of collecting and carrying water. With those wells that you're building in those communities, you're saving people 6 to 8 hours a day collecting water. And most often, women and children are the people that you're saving that time for. And like you already mentioned today, that's time that can be spent going to school and getting an education, or getting a job to contribute financially to households. It's imagine like your entire school day given back to you. So that is a huge issue. And the task of collecting water, carrying a jerry can like the one I showed earlier that weighs 44 pounds when it's filled, the task of collecting and carrying that water causes huge health problems for people. We've seen cases of spinal and pelvic deformation, or chronic fatigue, spontaneous miscarriages, these horrible things that happen because people have to carry and collect water in order to survive. And this brings me to the third issue, huge issue with the water crisis, of sanitation and hygiene, which is critical for disease reduction in any situation. Because even something as simple as bare skin contact with contaminated water, it exposes people to bacteria, parasites, diseases, that can make people sick or cause infections. And the reality is that a lot of people have to both drink and wash with contaminated water that exposes them to these bacteria and parasites. Now, I know what a lot of you have been curious about is what we've been doing as an organization since COVID-19 hit. Like, you've raised all this money for well projects, but what else has Thirst Project been doing? And on the big point of that, since when the pandemic first hit, in March, Eswatini's Ministry of Health actually reached out to Thirst Project and asked us to help them respond to the pandemic. So they asked us to build hand washing stations in communities, to build or to distribute like hygiene kits to different communities to help them be better equipped to respond to the pandemic. So that was what we were focusing on from March to early June. And we ended up directing over $100,000 into this effort to help better prepare the nation of Eswatini to deal with this pandemic. In addition to that, our team on the ground, like Sivu, I'm not sure if any of you have met Sivu before, but he is our like country director for Eswatini and helps like manage all the operations on the ground. And he is an amazing person. But people like Sivu, our personnel on the ground, they were asked to go into communities and train people about how to use these hand washing stations and hygiene kits, how to practice social distancing, the need to spend 20 seconds washing your hands. That's sort of more educational component that's really important to making sure that these resources are used effectively and have the impact that we need. Thankfully, in mid-June and early July, we were able to get back to our normal operations. Because up until that point, when we were still figuring out what to do, we had completely stopped our drilling for our wells. But in mid-June, early July, we were able to resume that in our countries, in like the countries that we work with, and we have continued our deep borehole wells is what we're working on right now. Now, in terms of what we've been doing with students like you, I mean, you all seem to be experts already. You know, you've had Thirst Project presentations at many of your schools, but yeah, we've shifted everything virtually. I am one of around 30 ambassadors representing different regions around the country and giving presentations to middle schools, high schools, colleges, beauty schools, conventions, all of these sorts of different programs and groups who want to learn more about the water crisis. And we have been super impressed by how creative students like you have gotten, how much money you've still managed to raise when we're in the middle of a public health and economic crisis. And we know it's much harder, but we really, really appreciate the things that you've been doing, like virtual walks for water or virtual talent shows. I heard, I thought that idea with like the having everyone raise $50 in 10 minutes, super creative. We've seen jewelry sales, sticker sales, art, all of those sorts of things. Online fundraising pages have been incredible. And it's really cool how you are reaching outside of your club community and even school community to outside of that to make a difference. I think that you all know like the impact of bringing clean water to a community, how disease rates consistently drop from over 88%. Child mortality rates drop over 90%. And the reality is that the work that you're doing is even more critical now, because without clean water, people can't wash their hands, people can't practice sanitation and hygiene. And when someone's sick, they can't have like the fluids that they need to help them get better. So yeah, I have so much appreciation and admiration for all of you, and kind of wanted to spend the rest of the time asking you what more you wanted to learn about Thirst Project. Do you want to know more about the water crisis? Do you want to know more about us as an organization? About what other students have been doing? I would be happy to answer like any questions if you want to put them in the chat, or even just unmute yourself and share out. Whatever you all think is best. I know that Alyssa, you've been helping facilitate.
Yeah, we were actually going to move into like an open floor Q&A after you were done. So we can move into that right now if you'd like to do that.
Sure.
All right.
Okay. I see the first question in the chat about how I first got involved with Thirst Project. So in a normal school presentation, I'd show plenty of baby photos to explain this story. But the point is that it's actually my older brother who helped me get involved with Thirst Project. I have a brother who's about 4 years older than me. And when I was in 6th grade, he started a club at our school called Water for the World. And it just, like, I just learned, I saw what he was like learning about the water crisis and different organizations like Thirst Project that he was working with. So when I got into high school, I ended up joining that club and becoming a leader in it and working more directly with Thirst Project for 4 years. And I actually just graduated from high school and got to work with that club for 4 years. So that was how I really got involved with Thirst Project. What are some of the favorite fundraisers I've seen? I think it's really cool when people like tap into what whatchamacallit. Yeah, sorry. I think it's really cool when people tap into the interests and like abilities of their students. So whether that's like tapping on their creative side or like yeah, tapping into their creative sides or just getting creative with like virtual fundraising, like on social media, things like the Miracle Minutes or like virtual walks for water where you're live streaming, tagging in people. I think that those have been really cool this year. In general, my personal favorite fundraiser that I've ever done was we did something called flooding at my school where we would go into a different classroom and we would use like not water-based materials, but other materials to kind of like decorate a classroom water themed. And we'd leave like a ransom note that was like your group, like all of your classes have to raise like $25 and then you get to choose who gets flooded next. And we would do that for 2 weeks where we'd like pass around like these decorations almost to different classrooms. And it was fun because it gave people like a buy-in where they both got to choose where the decorations went next. We gave them like a wristband or candy when they donated. And that was really fun for me. But if you want more specifics about like this year, other students, I'd be happy to answer that. I did see a question about my favorite part of Thirst Project, and there are two things. First, for any of you who've had like a speaker from Thirst Project, I'm sure that maybe you felt this before, but the energy of the organization is amazing. I always loved it and was why like I wanted to like become part of it in a different capacity this year. But it's the organization itself and then also the students we work with because it is really cool and humbling to see like all of the work that you're doing. If I'm missing any questions, will you help me out with that, Alyssa? Thank you.
Yeah, I think our latest question is, what is one of the biggest Thirst Project fundraisers you participated in?
Last year we did at my school, we did our first walk for water. My school had, it definitely was not fundraising on the same scale that I think you all have with your key clubs. As in like we would be lucky to get like $100 from a bake sale and we were only allowed to do bake sales like a few times a year for the first couple of years I was involved with the club. But last year we did a walk for water and we both like we called on like other corporate donations and sponsors from our community. We partnered with like another nearby school. And then we like paired that with our regular fundraising, like in campaigns like flooding like alone raised $1,000 in 2 weeks, which was like really big for us. But yeah, our walk for water was the biggest fundraiser that I've been involved with. And we ended up raising, I think almost 16,000 by the end, which was really big because our goal was 8,000. Do you have any recommendations for Washington State Key Clubbers about anything you can think of? Thirst Project, school, college? Okay, if you want to like, if I'm answering this question in the wrong direction, feel free to like add some clarification in the chat, Arian. But when it comes to like being involved with Thirst Project in school and college, so full disclosure, I'm taking a gap year right now. So I'm not necessarily in the college community yet. But I do know from my experience, like speaking to other people and like knowing the other ambassadors in school, I've seen like some really awesome work that people have done, like starting their own Thirst Project clubs in college. Like there's no reason why you necessarily have to like stop working with Thirst Project or Key Club when you move to that different educational space. Thirst Project also has a lot of really cool opportunities for you after you graduate, whether it's becoming an ambassador for them or they have some internships or they have some really good guidance in that respect. But another way to really stay involved with the Thirst Project community, both and like kind of connect with people in a similar space that you are, is with Mighty Networks. So Mighty Networks is a platform that Thirst Project launched last year, and it's basically like a social media network for people involved with Thirst Project. And what's really cool about it is that it has different like rooms and spaces for people interested in doing a walk for water or interested in virtual fundraising or interested in starting Thirst Project clubs in high schools. So it connects you with people that you can talk to and get ideas from. But then it also has little courses in it, which is really cool. It has courses in student leadership, whether it's like public speaking generally you want to get better at, or in online fundraising, non-online fundraising, and all of these different things. And I believe that there are plans to build out one just about a walk for water exclusively, because I know that that's something that a lot of people are interested in doing, but it definitely is a difficult thing to do. I know that from experience last year, there was a lot of learning as I was doing it. So yeah. Okay, if when things go back to normal, what are some successful fundraiser ideas that are out of the box? Okay, one of my favorites that I never actually got to like pilot at my school, but I thought was really cool is Change Force. And I know that Thirst Project did a campaign for this a few years ago, but basically like setting up like giant water bottles or things like that in like your school's front office, or something like that. And having like, the idea is to collect as many silver coins as you can. So you can separate the jars into, you could do it by grade level, right? So you could have like a grade level competition and you could have 4 jars, like 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And like, if you were a freshman, you would want to put as many silver coins in like the 9th grade jar as you can, but you'd want to put pennies or like dirty water into like other people's jars. And it would kind of like, at the end, you'd see who raised enough like quote unquote clean water, but it actually can turn out to be like a huge fundraiser. I think those sorts of like competition-based things really get a lot of people going. Also, just as like a general fun thing to do is just have like, if you can find a place in your school where you can put up a fundraising tracker to just show people how you're doing throughout the year, that is really cool. Because it like creates a visual, yeah, it's like a visual example of how you can do that, and like how your progress is going. And I know that can be really motivating for a lot of people. I'm trying to think while I wait for any other questions, if they do come. I'm trying to think of any other fundraising ideas that I've really liked that I've seen. Miracle minutes in person after assemblies are really, really cool. Where you just like, or you can even do them with like a piece of duct tape, where you just like take a piece of duct tape and you have people put on like coins or bills. Only issue is taking off the bills can get tricky, or like pass around a bucket and see what people can do if they just like empty their pockets in those minutes. Those sorts of things, they just kind of like bring an adrenaline rush and they get people like incentivized to just buy in that moment. I also see a private comment from Mia. I hope you don't mind me sharing. Last year, you raised over $100 during a miracle minute. That's incredible. And that's the sort of thing that you can do in person, but also virtually. I know that like in 10 minutes, I saw some post from Thirst Project that like, I think at Tufts, like they raised over like $100, like Mia was saying, in like 5 minutes, which is really cool. And Venmo is a great way to do miracle minutes virtually.
All right, I'm not seeing any more questions. But is there any way that people could contact you if they do have any more questions for you?
Yes, definitely. I'm going to put my email in the chat and my phone number, so you can always reach out to me there. And Alyssa, if you want me to email that to you separately to distribute, I'll do that as well. Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here. All right, I'm going to share screen again. All right. So thank you again, JF, for all of your insightful responses, and thank you all for your questions in the chat. So before we close out tonight's webinar, I'd like to do a quick review of our district project resources. So first up, our spring fundraising guide has just been released by district editor Jessica Lober. So please go give that a read if you're interested in doing any more fundraising before DCON. This edition has 6 new options for virtual fundraising opportunities, as well as some super cute new bingo boards that you can post on your Instagram to help collect donations. And then you can also check out our PNW issue page if you want to read our previous 3 guides. For district project updates, be sure to follow our socials on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And then unfortunately, our PNW Key Club shop is currently down. But as soon as it's back up, make sure to go visit that and donate to Thirst Project that way. And then for resources directly from Thirst Project, make sure to visit their website at thirstproject.org and follow them on Instagram at Thirst Project. So once again, thank you all for being here tonight, and we hope you have a great rest of your weekend.